Hello friends, welcome to Codersart. This is the second video of deep learning series. In the previous video of deep learning, we have given brief introduction about the deep learning. Now in this video, we are going to talking about the concept and terminology like neurons and activation function which is used in the deep learning model. So let's start with artificial neural network. What is artificial neural network? Artificial neural network is the functional unit of deep learning. The design of artificial neural network are the same way as the human brain, with neurons node interconnected with each other. And each neuron is made up of cell body that process information by bringing it from the brain. Neural network can complex pattern using layer of neurons, which is mathematically transform the data. And the layer between the input layer and output layer is called hidden layer. The diagram you can see in the screen is a multi-layer perceptron. Multi-layer perceptron must have at least three layers: input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. These layers are fully connected to each other, and each node in layer are connected with a weight to every node in the next layer. What is neurons? As we just talk about the nodes, which is also called neurons. An artificial neurons is a mathematical function. It takes the one or more than one input that are multiplied by value called weights and added together and perform a transform on them. After that, this value passed to a non-linear function which is called the activation function to become neurons output a single scalar value. In artificial neural network, every neurons receive information from many other neurons process it and passes its state information to other neurons. This X value refers to the input value. It is feature or input from a previous hidden layer. And each layer there is also a bias B which is help to better fit the data. This neuron passes the value of A to all the neurons and these neurons are connected to the next layer. What is activation function? Activation function apply a non-linear transformation and it determines if a neuron should be activated or not activated. This implies that it will use some simple mathematical operation to determine if the neuron's input to the network is relevant or not relevant in the prediction process. I will explain it by example. In a neural network, we have input layer where we accept the input and output layer that give the actual prediction or the outcome of the network, and in between we have the hidden layer. All of these layers consist of neurons and each neurons we apply linear transformation. It multiply input with some weights and maybe add some bias. This works when we simple problem where we can model prediction with linear function, but suppose in more complex problem there are number of hidden layers to the network. Without activation function we only get linear transformation after each other. Without activation function the whole network is basically stacked linear regression model that is not able to learn complex pattern. So that is why the activation function come into the picture. So after that each layer apply the activation function. This applies a non-linear transformation and help our model or a network to solve the complex problem. So there are different kind of activation function: step function, sigmoid function, tanh ReLU, Leaky ReLU, and softmax. Step function. In this activation function, compare the input value with threshold value. If the input value is greater than or equal to the threshold value, the neurons is activated. If the input value is less than threshold value, then the neurons is not activated. It means the output is not sent to the next or hidden layer. Sigmoid function. This is the formula of sigmoid function. The output of this formula is probability between 0 and 1. If the input value is negative, then the sigmoid output is close to 0. And if the input value is positive value, then sigmoid it transform it to 1. Sigmoid rising the curve between 0 and 1. It means positive input value is neurons will be activated. Sigmoid function is used in a hidden layer, but most of the time it is used in a final layer for binary classification. Hyperbolic tangent function. It is commonly choice for hidden layer. The output range is between -1 and 1. It different from the sigmoid function and its output is 0 centered. And this is the formula of hyperbolic tangent. ReLU. ReLU stands for rectified linear unit. It is one of the most commonly used activation function in the application. This is the formula of ReLU function. It takes the maximum of 0 and the input x, so the input is negative, its output is 0. If the input is positive, it returns this output without modification. It actually improves the learning of our neural network. If you are not sure which activation function should use in a hidden layer, then just use value. There is only one problem that sometimes happen during training. This is called time value. After the lot of iteration, our neurons can reach dead state where it only output is 0 for any given input, which means there will be no more updates for weights. To avoid this, you can use the slightly adapted function which is leaky ReLU. Leaky ReLU is upgraded version of ReLU function. In this function, the positive number of return the input, but for negative number it does not return 0. It applies a small scaling factor a times x. For example, 0.001, so the output is close to 0. But it avoids that the neurons will be completely dead. This can be good choice for hidden layer. When you notice the weight are not won't update during training, then try using leaky ReLU instead of the normal ReLU function. And the last function is softmax. It determines the relative probability. This is the formula of softmax. Softmax function squashes the input number of the output number between 0 and 1, so that you will get the probability value at the end. A higher input number, then the higher will be probability value. This is usually used in the last layer in multi-class classification after applying the softmax. In the end, you then decide for the class highest probability. So guys, in this video we have seen about artificial neural network, what is neurons and activation function. So that's it for today. Thank you.